The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Today we'll be discussing HIPPY, the Home Instruction Program for Preschool Youngsters, a school readiness, early childhood development program initiated and implemented by the National Council of Jewish Women. Hillary Rodham Clinton, a longtime HIPPY board member, gives a perspective from the national level, followed by a discussion with local board members Linda Tell, Barbara Rubin, Judy Traub, and Minnesota Program Coordinator Carol White.
HIPPY is the Home Instruction Program for Preschool Youngsters, known as HIPPY as an acronym. It is a program that was begun in Israel in the late 60s and early 70s as a result of work done there at Hebrew University sponsored by the National Council of Jewish Women. The primary researcher was Dr. Avima Lombard. And the point of the program was to work with mothers of children so that the mothers could learn how to be their own child's first teacher. And it has had great success, both in Israel where it began as well as in other places around the world.
Hello and welcome. Judy, why don't we start with you? Most communities have early family childhood programs like Head Start. How does HIPPY differ from these programs?
Good question, Linda. I think that HIPPY differs because it's focused on parents. It teaches parents how to teach their children. Other programs really focus on the children. This is a program that strengthens parents, and in doing so, it strengthens the communities.
Carol, what are parent educators? And I know you don't use that term, parent educator.
We call them home visitors. Home visitors are parents themselves of the community. And they are trained from on a national level as well as a local level. A national trainer comes in from New York, and we train them for an intense 3 days. And they go into the HIPPY participants' home and demonstrate the HIPPY curriculum with the parent.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about that training? What's involved in the training? I know recently I think right now you're in the midst of one of those trainings. So tell us what goes on.
We go in and let me start from the beginning. Okay, the trainer from New York comes in, and she talks about HIPPY on a national level as well as a local level, and then we talk about the home visits. We talk about the group meetings. Maybe some of the crises that may arise with some of the participants from the HIPPY program, and also the home visitor also has to have a 4-year-old themselves, and it's.
How do you find these home visitors?
I go. That's a very interesting part of the program. I recruit the majority of the home visitors. I find them from supermarkets, powwows, parks.
Are they predominantly mothers or fathers or?
Predominantly mothers.
And but you do have some fathers in the program?
We've had 2 to 3 dads in the program in the past.
All right, so you have home visitors who's a parent themselves. Then who are the people, who do the home visitors make visits on?
They make home visits with the families.
How do you find these families?
Food shelves, food lines, wherever. If I see a 4-year-old, a parent with a 4-year-old, I go and approach that parent and ask them, do you have a 4-year-old? I feel like sometimes I feel like I almost want to have a recorder and say, turn it on and say, do you have a 4-year-old?
All right, so let's say I do have a 4-year-old. What would you say? Do you have a 4-year-old? And I say yes. Then what?
I would say, would you like to yourself get them ready for kindergarten? Would you like to have them prepared for kindergarten next year? And would you like to do it in your own home?
How do you go about doing that? What a mother would say, what are you saying? Sure, I don't want any strangers coming to my home. What is this all about? Where are you coming from?
We come from, well, we have I would show them the activity packets that I have. I usually carry around all the materials that we use.
I know, I think today you brought some of these materials.
I brought some of these. We use different, the supplies are all free. We use these. There's 9 of these books.
Mm-hmm.
There's 30 weeks of activity packets. The curriculum is all set, and we go into the home and we demonstrate this. And I usually show them what the activities consist of, and they learn some very basic things. And a lot of parents want to help their children get ready for kindergarten, but they don't have all the tools to do it. And this HIPPY program has a lot of different activities. In fact, I found out yesterday with the national trainer from New York, Wanda Roundtree, that there's, and it almost sounds kind of scary, but they learn like 300 different activities in 1 year, these 4-year-olds. If you total all the activities, there's about 300 activities that they learn in a year's time.
So a 4-year-old would be needing to know about shapes and colors and sizes and numbers, and even some reading skills. I mean, all these are you're teaching them reading readiness skills.
The parent is given these books, and they will read to their child. Now, there's it's very graphic and very colorful pictures and very big bold letters, and so the parent reads to their child, and that's how children learn, is by listening to the parent read to them.
Suppose your mom who isn't a good reader.
We try to help them with that, and we do some referrals if they have some low reading skills. But it's and I don't want to. The reading materials is about like at a 3rd grade level, so I don't think the words are real hard at all.
Do you ever get the siblings involved in the family? Do you ever have a sibling be a home visit?
We do that, but we prefer them to be, like at least 10 to 12 years old, if all possible. Now, the HIPPY program can be done with, extended family members, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, anybody who is in the home and desires to help the preschooler.
So if a grandparent is hearing this program today and they're thinking, well, my 4-year-old grandchild is not, I want her ready for school, and I've been thinking, what can I do? How can I help her? This is a wonderful opportunity. HIPPY is a wonderful opportunity for her to get, or him to get his grandchild involved. Now, that's something unique about this program.
I was going to add something, though, because we've heard stories about children who play HIPPY at home with their younger sisters and brothers. And so we have 4-year-olds who take the book. They've now been they have the role model of someone sitting and reading to them. And so they take the younger sibling and read to that younger sibling, reinforcing both the skills that they've learned and the relationships that they've built. And what's nice about the HIPPY program is the family gets to keep all the books and materials at the end. And so sometimes there are homes that don't have a whole lot of books, and it gives them the material to keep, and it teaches them to learn to love reading as well.
Also, the child, having heard the story and the parent having learned how to read it to the child, almost gets the story memorized and will oftentimes be heard reading, with quotes around it, to a younger sibling. Also, when Carol mentioned the paraprofessionals, or in Minneapolis we call them the home visitors, needing to have a child of their own, if someone wants to be a paraprofessional and they do not have a 4-year-old and they are not themselves a parent, they can sort of utilize someone else's child. They might take a nephew or a niece or a friend's child and sort of adopt that child as their HIPPY child, so that they, as a paraprofessional, work with that child as they then in turn work with families.
I met a home parent or a home visitor the other day who actually doesn't have her own 4-year-old, but has the neighbor upstairs. So you're right, it is sounds like a very community involved or well-based program. It was first introduced in 1984, and now there are 11,000 families involved in the program, and there are 23 states involved. And as we saw in the beginning, Rodham Clinton saw it and wanted it for Arkansas, and Arkansas has the most sites now, and it even has a training center. How did it first arrive in Minnesota, and in what year?
It first arrived, we first tried to start it way back in about 1985 or 1986, and I was one of a few people who approached the Minneapolis School Department and asked them to put it in, but funding prevented that from happening. Shortly thereafter, people at the Indian Health Board, who were already providing programs for their older children, their adolescents and their early, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, were interested in providing some programs for their 4 and 5-year-olds, and they were already working on their program Soaring Eagles.
Yes.
And working with the University of Minnesota Extension, and they asked Byron Schneider and Jerry Stein at the university to research good programs for 4 and 5-year-olds, and they did a literature search, and they found HIPPY. They called the National Office of National Council of Jewish Women, who had developed HIPPY, and the national office referred them to the Minneapolis section office. And with that, we put together a coalition of the university at the Humphrey, well, then it was at 4-H, and the National Council of Jewish Women and the Indian Health Board. We had help from Pillsbury Foundation, and ultimately got some funding from the Pillsbury Foundation and Emma Howe and Sheltering Arms. And we put in a privately funded program at the Indian Health Board for 60 families. I guess the first year we must have had about 45 or 50 participants.
Yes, 47 families finished the program in 1990-91.
And you were the coordinator of that program,
yes.
Carol.
Yes.
I want to correct one thing. We have 11,000 participants. They're not all in Minnesota.
No.
They're all over the country. In Minnesota, we're now recruiting the first 60 participants for this year's program in 1993. And in 1994, we hope to expand it. So we'll have 64-year-olds and 65-year-olds. So we'll have 120 in this site. And our goal is that we'll add additional sites.
The 4-year-olds from this year's program can go on to the next year's program will be the 5-year-olds.
Right.
I hope I say
Right,
that right.
we've made that clear.
I'd like to add one thing. When Judy talks about we hope to have, actually Judy and I are involved in a committee that's purpose is to help expand HIPPY throughout the state of Minnesota. But actually HIPPY occurs within a community. So Carol, as the coordinator of this year's program, it is happening right now in the Phillips neighborhood. She coordinates that program. The paraprofessionals, or home visitors as we call them, and the families all come from within the Phillips community. Our involvement as volunteers is strictly in helping support Carol and the community's effort, and in looking to expand HIPPY and educate people on how HIPPY can be a part of their communities. So I wanted to clarify that.
And for those of you who may not know, the Phillips community is located in South Minneapolis.
Yes, it's one of the biggest communities in Minneapolis, correct?
I'm not sure.
Right.
And it employs. This is a job employment opportunity for these moms. These home trainers are paid professionals,
Yes.
or paid paraprofessionals.
They work approximately 20 hours a week. They get a fairly good wage, and they're and like I said, they're parents themselves, and a lot of them have not been able to. They've chosen to stay in the home with their preschoolers, and so they don't have a lot of job experience, but are very, very willing to make that break and want to seek employment with the HIPPY program. And in the past, it has helped some of the home visitors go on to school. It has helped them achieve higher employment or better employment, better paying employment.
It sounds like it's built self-esteem in these moms themselves,
Yes.
which is certainly lacking for moms these days. Maybe you can share some of the personal experiences. I know you've told me before we came on the air, you told me some very heart-rendering stories. Share some of those with us.
There's this one that always sticks in my mind. This one home visitor went to the HIPPY participant's home, and was getting out of the car, was going up the steps, and the mom was sitting in a car. She got out and she told a home visitor that there was some problems over the weekend. Apparently there was some little conflicts between her and her mate, and her mate flooded her home, and so she couldn't. It was not.
This is a domestic violence.
Yes, yeah, and it was not in a livable situation. The mom of the HIPPY program stayed in St. Paul and came all the way over from St. Paul and waited for her home visitor to show up, and so she could do HIPPY with the home visitor. And I don't know why that always I just thought that was very, very much dedication.
And commitment to the program,
yes.
and important to their lives.
And another thing that it comes out of this too is that the moms could get their children to do a lot of like chores, little chores that clean their rooms. They could get them to take naps, and tell them that when you get up, you and I will do HIPPY. Another one was that.
So a kind of a bribe. HIPPY has become a bribe.
Yes,
I'd like to make that bribe in my home.
So
I remember a story when I think I went to one of the it was a training session with the paraprofessionals or the home visitors with the parents, and they were role playing, and the mother sitting next to me said that at one point that 15 minutes a day she was spending doing HIPPY with her child seemed like it might be just too much time in a busy day and taking care of other children, and she was thinking at that time that maybe she wouldn't be able to continue the program, and the child began crying and said, "I want HIPPY, I want HIPPY," and the mother said, you know, there was no way she could drop out of the HIPPY program because this child was demanding it, because that 15 minutes a day was so important. So what she was doing was, I think the day I went, she had her 14 or 15-year-old daughter with her and I met the daughter, and the daughter was learning HIPPY so that on the days the mother might not be able to spend with the younger child, the daughter would then know the skills. So she, in a sense, was being trained, teaching skills.
Yes.
The teenager was also being given the skills that the mother was being given, which was a wonderful opportunity.
Yes, there's some.
It sounds like perhaps this is going to benefit our future educators. This older sibling, might want to become a teacher someday. And we're in desperate need of those good teachers. So this program is really.
And I'd like to add to that, a lot of the HIPPY people that, you know, the HIPPY moms, they themselves asked to become HIPPY home visitors. I was going to have this one HIPPY grandmother become a home visitor this year, but then some other opportunities came up through the summer. But we call her the HIPPY grandmother. She had 3 daughters in the program and 5 grandchildren. And she just loves it, and she support. Oh, she was very upset when we lost some of the funding for that year.
That was at the last site when that was run through the Indian Health Board, and so we're on a new program now. So these stories all relate.
Yes,
to the past.
To the past, yes. I'd like to add that.
Do the moms meet together? Is there a support group for moms of HIPPY?
Okay. What we do is we do I'll say 6 to 8 home visits when we first start the program, and then after about 6 to 8 weeks, where the home visitor can build a rapport, a relationship with the parents that she's going to be working with. After this is done, then we have these what we call the group meetings, and these group meetings are held at Hans Christian Andersen School, and every other week we go into the school. The mom, the 4-year-old, and siblings also can come, and we provide transportation, and we sit and we role play the activity packets as a group.
Are the children in that group?
As a group of moms.
As a group of moms, excuse me, as a group of moms. Okay,
But you're providing child care for the kids.
Yes, and the moms are in one room, and the preschoolers are in another room, and then the siblings are in another room. So they're age appropriate, and the preschoolers also getting some kind of activity with the.
Sounds like HIPPY covers all bases. It really kind of
And we have
good for everybody.
a variety of people who can come in during those group meetings. We can use them as an opportunity to talk about jobs. We can talk about nutrition, health. We can we can really combine, you know, when they talk in this area about consolidating services and co-locating services, this is a program that brings together social service agencies, health, education, jobs and training. Really, we can provide and meet the needs, a lot of the needs of the parents, as well as make them feel good, because we can just do programs that improve their self-esteem, the way they look, the way they, you know, they might want to do something about grooming or personal hygiene at one meeting, and we have that opportunity too, Carol, don't we?
Yeah, and we also do like preschool screening. The people come in from 8:07, and they'll do they'll give them information about getting their child into school next year, and so we have some real informational type stuff for the parents, and we also let the participants of the program make some decisions as to what would they like to have in these group meetings, the enrichment topics.
And I want to add one more thing about what the group meetings do. The group meetings bring these parents into the school, because we are working with the school department. We've been working with them all, the school district. We've been working with them all along in the HIPPY program. Some of the parents have not had good experiences themselves in school when they were younger. This brings them back into the school setting in a much more comfortable surrounding. And when their child enters school, they're much more willing to be a participant in the child's education. They'll go to school, they'll talk to the parent, to the teacher, they'll return, they'll get involved in the school activities, and it has broken down all those bad memories that they have of school and made them much more supportive of their school and its
The other
community.
piece of that is that the children, because they have gone into the room while the parents have the group meeting and the children are in the room, they already have an identification with that school. So what happens when they start kindergarten, they're already going to my school. This is where I did HIPPY. So they're not walking in as a stranger, frightened and terrified. They're actually walking into a very familiar and comfortable place. The second piece of it is through HIPPY, the parent actually learns how their child learns, because they're doing the reading and working with shapes and learning how to cut and connect dots, and so many of the preschool readiness activities are part of this program. The parent has already learned that their child may have a certain kind of learning style. It allows the parent to be a much better advocate for their own child when that child starts school. So that's another piece of it. It really is empowering the parent. And teaching the parent how to be a part of the process is what really evolves from those group meetings, from the home sessions with their child. They come in a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more comfortable within that setting.
And the kids that were in the HIPPY program were very excited to come to the group meetings, because they felt so big. We get to go to school today, even if it was for for a short time. They were very excited about being able to come into the school.
Now tell me, how long is a commitment that, first of all, a trainer makes, a home visitor and a parent and a family?
The program lasts approximately 30 weeks.
All right, so that's a school year. Do you begin it in September?
Yeah,
and
we try to run concurrent with the school year. And so, for the home visitor, it may last like 32 to 34 weeks. Because
so they're trained in the summer or trained prior?
Or the fall.
And the commitment to a home trainer would be an hour a week of training and then half an hour of visiting. How much time is spent in the home?
At first, the home visitor probably takes about an hour to go with the parent, to be in the home with the parent, because it's fairly new to both them, and then I'm sure the parents got a lot of questions. After they're doing home visits, probably for 6 to 8 weeks, it should cut down to about 45 minutes to half an hour.
A visit?
Yeah, a visit.
And the mom who's involved or the kid that's involved spends how much time?
The parent, and after the role playing's done with the home visitor and the parent, then the curriculum with the parent and the child takes about 10 or 15 minutes a day.
Okay. And it sounds like it's not a big time commitment, but in the long run, it's a extremely important commitment. What is the cost to the family?
There's no cost whatsoever to the family. All the activity packets, the books, the shapes, everything, the glue, scissors, crayons. The program provides all the supplies.
So if you're listening to this program today and you want to find out how you can get HIPPY in your community, Barbara, what would you do?
I would do one of two things. The first place I would probably call right now would be the National Council of Jewish Women office, and the phone number there is 545-1120, and that's in Minneapolis. So we probably should say 612-545-1120. Or I would call New York, HIPPY USA office, and I would request the information on HIPPY. And some of the things that you would receive then would be a startup manual and a contract. The startup manual would actually tell you everything you would need, the amount of funding that would be required to fund your first 3 years of HIPPY, and it breaks it down to the cost for the first year, the second year, and the third year. And then if I were going to get it going in my community, I would begin exploring the resources available for funding. And I would look to several funding areas. I would look to, one, I would ask the HIPPY offices or HIPPY Minnesota through the National Council office of what some of the funding sources were in Minneapolis, how it was funded here and in other sites.
And I think we mentioned some of those funding.
Through foundations, private foundations. It can be through corporate money. In Colorado, Coors and US West helped fund HIPPY. In other sites, they've used not only the private foundation money and the corporate monies, but public money. Even Start money could be accessed to fund HIPPY. Chapter 1 money could be accessed. In Minneapolis, at the site that's just been started at the Phillips Community Initiative for Children, PCIC, where Carol is now currently in 1993 coordinating it, the funding came through the early childhood money, through the school referendum money from the Minneapolis Public Schools. So again, public money through referendum monies could be used to finance HIPPY. If I were starting it out, I would research all of those pieces, and I would determine which community, which portion of my community was best suited to act as the fiscal agent for HIPPY, and where the greatest need might be. And I would begin a HIPPY site. Did that answer it?
That answered it.
Okay.
In more ways than one. So that's a person who's involved, who might be an educator and is hearing this program today. And if you're a mom and you just happened to channel in on this program, a mom and said, oh, this HIPPY sounds interesting, they could also call
a grandmother or a father, or it could even be a social service agency that would like to serve as a fiscal agent for a community.
All right. It's a pretty dynamic program, and today with children's issues being at the forefront of everything, I really think that HIPPY USA and HIPPY Minnesota is such a dynamic, interesting program. I'd like to thank you all for sharing HIPPY and for letting us know what this innovative and progressive program is all about.
The involvement of the Greater Minneapolis section of the National Council of Jewish Women in initiating and implementing HIPPY in our community is a wonderful example of a common sense approach to preparing young children for school. Thank you, Linda Tell, Barbara Rubin, Carol White, and Judy Traub. Thanks to all of you for joining us in All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency.